All right, so today I'm going to talk about alternate surfaces for your ceramics if you don't want to do the glazing, because I know some of you have brightly colored things. I've seen some Garfield, some SpongeBob, things like that. So if you want to do that, your options are, one, you can do things where you start with almost like a watercolory look to the acrylics, and you put those on here, and then you can layer them and kind of get some interesting, I've seen some really cool creepy things. We used to do a mask project that we didn't glaze, and that's why these are all masks. You can take one color of paint, make it a base coat. I think the black looks sophisticated in this sense, and then go on top of it with colored pencils to get different colors and details. That works very nicely. It works well on textures too, and you can just get the tops of the textures with the colored pencils. He's a little broken here. And that can help. And then lastly, you can actually just use the acrylic like we would tend to use the acrylic. The tough part is edges, to make it look nice and get all the way around all the parts. I have some suggestions for that we'll talk about. So first off, if you wanted to use the acrylics and get sort of that watercolory look, it's kind of a nice effect. All the acrylics you want, these stiffer brushes, not the fluffy ones we use for the glazes, but over here we have stiffer brushes that you can use. I have all the colors, I have palettes. You will need to use an ID to check out the palette, the brush, and the paint, so I can check that everything's clean in the end, because it is permanent. It's permanent on your project, it's permanent on your clothing. So be careful. You want to make sure you have newspaper underneath. Please don't get paint on my tables. Use the newspaper underneath. Make sure you have paper towels if you need to wipe things off, and just be careful not to get it on your clothes. So I get a little water on my brush and my paint. I should talk about that. So the paint, when you put paint in the palette, you don't need every color. No, you need like one color at a time. If you're gonna mix a couple colors, mix those two colors and then use them. When I'm done talking, you're gonna have like half a period-ish before cleanup to get all this stuff done. So you don't get the rainbow. You're not gonna use it, you end up throwing away paint, clogging the sink, so please don't do that. So what I'd like you to do, just take a little bit, I'm using just a touch of yellow. So I take this is for demo purposes only, and I'm just gonna do a little bit of a squeeze. That's all I need. I can always come get more. There's always more, but I don't need to keep filling up my whole palette like so. I get a nice stiff brush, I get a little water on my brush, and then if I want it to be watercolory, I get water here. I'll show you a little bit with the red maybe. Oh, we have red on there, right? Let's do some yellow. Bless you. Oh, there's some black in there, so I'm getting this sort of cool blackish greenish color. It's nice for creepy things. And you can see that when I brush it on, the direction shows, let's get a little red in there. It's not a cool color, I don't love it. But I can kind of blend this in, get some different directions, kind of like create sort of an interesting watercolory surface. And the nice thing about this is it goes everywhere. The acrylics are kind of thick, and so if you add water, they'll get in those little cracks and crevices. Like here, there's a texture here, so if I want to not go in there, I don't put water on it, and I can kind of go around it and see where that comes up. I can do things like that. Or if I want it to cover, I can just really get in those edges and those crevices. Now I should have taken the water out of my brush to get a nice solid yellow, but I didn't, so now it's gonna be water. I would use 2 coats across the black for this. So I can do things like that. I can make it watercolor. If I want a solid color, let's clean the brush. So to clean it, I'm gonna push it on the bottom of the cup of water. I kind of go back and forth, and then I rub it like this. I don't go like this. All that does is get acrylic paint on me, spattered places, on people, make everyone angry. No, I just go like this very nicely. Dab a little bit of the water out so I can get more of a solid color. Let's see, I want the solid black. I'll put the solid black over here. And I can go like this, like so. And it dries really quickly, which is nice, because then I can work with this right away. So I can cover this. Now I recommend highly little bit of water on the brush and getting a base coat of any color. So let's just say I'm gonna paint a house, and then I want the windows and the door to be a different color. If the house is gonna be light blue, paint light blue everywhere, and then come back and add just the edges of trim with like the white window panes or things like that. If you get that base coat in there, it's going to look nicer, because it's really hard to get into the little parts next to each other, things like that. So if I take this, let's finish this part. So here's my base coat, for example. And then, I kind of messed up that L. Like, let's just face it, that wasn't my best there. It doesn't look good. So I can take this, I'm gonna clean it out right away, because it dries so quick, it can make my brush a chunk, a permanent, sticky, yucky chunk. So I clean this out right away, and as soon as I dab it on here, oh, look at this, I can see on my paper towel, there's no color. I know it's clean, and I'm not gonna be responsible for a gross brush later. It's nice and easy. Now, while this dries, I'll show you these. Prismacolors are wonderful soft lead colored pencils. These aren't like the ones at the grocery store, the Crayola, that are kind of hard. These are really soft, and the great thing about that, and the reason why we're using them, is because then they'll give you, bless you, brighter colors on here, so I can add colors and details and things like that. So let's just say I wanted to add, it still looks a little dark, doesn't it? Let's just say I have this red as my base coat, and I wanted to add some yellow to it. So I can come on top of there, and I can add colors to this. It sometimes shows the direction of the colored pencil a little bit, but I can create nice edges. I can build up values, and I can kind of use that direction to get an interesting textural effect if I want, and kind of blend it maybe into that yellow. So I can get some different effects that way. The lighter colors work really nice if you do go with the black, and this is already, I can see it's already dry. There's a little wet, so I'll do this up here. But now maybe I go up here and I wanted to do, I don't know, I can draw on it. I can create an area that's a specific color. And then afterwards, we're gonna do a clear coat over it. So I'll show you the clear coat another day. It's just a clear coat of acrylic gloss, and then that will stay. So then I have some different details, some different things I can add. So this is one option. So that I have the watercolor-y acrylic option. I got one coat with colored pencils as an option. And if I wanted to do multiple colors, like I wanted to add another color here, like let's just say I'm gonna put some red on top of this black. I'm not gonna add as much water this time because I want it to be solid. If I wanna create an edge, I'm gonna rest my hand on something carefully, and then I'm gonna go in one smooth stroke. I'm trying to hurry too much. This isn't quite dry. It really does take just a couple minutes, but it's not doing that now. Let's go over here. Here, I have this lovely colored background. Now you can see better while it's dry. And I'm gonna make a little heart, let's say. Not encouraging you to make hearts, but you know, it's a nice little form. See how I'm resting my hand and I'm going in one swoop with the brush. If I dab at an edge like this, I tend to not get a nice edge. But if I go like this, while I'm holding it steady and make one edge and then kind of fill in next to it, I can get that nice edge. So that's the key. A base coat and one nice edge. Don't start with your teeny details, because then you gotta paint around them. You usually mess them up and have to repaint them. So then you have these here. The last thing I have to show you, oh good, that's clean. This is my color wheel. If you want to mix colors, I'm gonna put this up behind me so you can see I have all the primaries and secondaries here: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, violet. The white is in a tube because we're out of it in these little jars, guys. And what was the other thing? And the blue and green are pretty dark. So I do have a lighter green, and I would mix a little bit of white with it. But you wanna mix up enough to do the whole area you're gonna do for that day. Does that make sense? Yeah. Thank you. All right, so if you're using painting today, it's here.